I'm, quote, Dr. Lloyd Miller, and I'm here with the Heliocentrics. We did some recordings that are very interesting, combining East and West, and all kinds of different things in a musical conglomeration that's going to be released by K7 or Strut Records here in London. My parents were these kind of high-class, ritzy people in Southern California, lived in a snazzy section that's snazzier than Beverly Hills, we think anyway. And so they sent me to piano lessons and all kinds of lessons, anything from ballet to boxing. They sent me to everything. And I didn't, get much out of any of them. I didn't even get anything out of the piano lessons. I got more out of my grandpa's player piano that you pump the pedals and then the paper goes by with holes in it and the keys go down. I followed the keys with my fingers. That's where I learned piano. I was playing in different jazz clubs in LA that were kind of well known. I was just starting to make it where I might have become something in the jazz world. And suddenly my father got the police chief in Glendale, who was his friend from the Lions Club, one of those organizations that people join, said, your car has been cited as dealing in pounds and pounds of cocaine and heroin, and we're going to arrest your car, and we know, Sherm, that you haven't been selling drugs, so what's going on with this car? He says, well, my son uses that car. I don't think he sells drugs, but I'll ask him about it. And he asked me, I said, no, I didn't. I just once in a while lend it to the bass player and his girlfriend, the singer, that were jamming at the, and I wondered why he always let me play bass. He says, you want to take a couple of sets on bass? And they were out selling drugs in my car. So right at that same time, he got an offer to set up a business school in Iran, in Tehran, for the Shah. So he grabbed that offer through a UCLA or USC, and off we went, like almost within days from the message from the cops that I was going to be busted. We traveled through Japan and Thailand and India, and every place I went to I heard music and I thought, oh wow, this is what I've been looking for. And finally we got to Tehran and they turned on the radio and there was a tar playing, which is a skin-covered kind of guitar-type lute instrument that had so much soul, and I said, yeah, I knew it was there somewhere. This is the kind of music I wanted to find, and I found it. So I met some musicians who said, man, you got to go to Germany. And then I met a German guy who was a drummer from Frankfurt that said, oh yeah, you go to Frankfurt to the Domicile de Jazz, the Jazz Keller in Frankfurt, and lots of great stuff is happening. You probably get a chance to play, maybe even make some money. So I took a train to Mainz and I went down to the Jazz Keller, and then somebody says, you play jazz? And I says, yeah, I was talking about, I was from America. And he says, do you play piano? He says, yeah. I said, well, there's one, go play it. It's the first time people asked me to go play. Of course, they didn't pay you, but they did give you free drinks and free bratwurst every once in a while. So that was, I was house band there, me and a couple of other guys, a Jewish drummer and a German bass player. We were kind of the house band for a few months there in Mainz. One night at the Jazz Keller, the famous Don Ellis and Eddie Harris came down with the Jazz 3 ensemble of about 12 guys, the best musicians in America, who were drafted in the Army, so they let them play. And so I was playing, I heard this sound. I thought, what are these, who are these guys? And I couldn't turn around because the piano faces the wall. I tried to look back, and then Moffy comes up and he says, what's happening, man? He says, this the Jazz 3 group, this Don Ellis, Eddie Harris, and Sanchez on trombone. And he named all these guys that were, later I found out, were world famous guys. And so we played and played and played. So in Stockholm, I had a chance to really play with a lot of great musicians. And I wrote arrangements, and then I went to this famous jazz club that's still there in Nalen, and I started hanging out there, and people asked me to write charts for them, so I wrote them for all the bands there, and they all loved my stuff. And I met all these really great musicians, Ben Rosengreen and Lars Fernlöf, the trumpet player, and Leonard Janssen, the world's greatest baritone sax player that's ever lived. And so he said he couldn't stand it. He was going nuts with this darkness and snow and everything. So he says, let's go to Paris, where there's even more jazz than any place in the world, even more than here. In Paris, we started going to these different jazz clubs, Saint-Germain-des-Prés, and the Mars Club, and the Blue Note. And right around the corner was a little shop that made recordings and made records for people that wanted to make a record for their mom in Italy or something like that. And it was called Kiosque d'Orphée. And so one day I went inside and I talked to the owner, this guy named Jeff Gilson. I really liked him. We got along great. He found out I was a piano player. I wanted to record a record. He says, I'll do it for you for free because I like what you're doing. He says, don't worry about anything. Just go ahead and we'll press 6 of them. And there's only a couple left, and I gave one to a really good friend recently. And so we became friends, and he said, I'm looking for a soloist for my band. And I says, oh, who are you thinking of? He said, you. And I says, moi, c'est pas possible, je ne peux pas faire ça. He says, no, you're the guy that I want for my soloist because you can play any instrument, and you got this. I says, but moi, je suis pianiste. He said, that's all right, I'll play piano, and we'll find instruments for you to play. Well, the Gilson band soared to the top of the charts in Paris. We played the biggest places, 3,000, 2,000 seat theaters and so on. I mean, unbelievable, just people screaming for us. And I don't know why, because I didn't really relate to the music as much as I should, because Gilson was a fan of Monk, and he played weird stuff and wrote weird stuff. But I see the charm in it now that I look back on it, and I see why people liked it. So anyway, the band broke up, and so then I guess I just ended up going back to the States with my head down like, oh, what a failure. I thought I was going to make it in jazz. I got to the States and I enrolled at Brigham Young University because that's where all the Mormons told me you should go. If you're a Mormon, you have to go to BYU and you'll get married there, and I did a couple, 3 times. And anyway, so I went to BYU and I found the jazz scene there. It was pretty grim, but they had a really good piano player, and he was going to enter the Intercollegiate Jazz Festival. I said, what's that? They said, that's all the western states except for the coastal states, and to see who's the best band. It's kind of a contest. So I thought, what can I do? All right, I'll get out my santur and my oud and clarinet, and we'll play some, let's blend some music, Turkish, and I always wanted to do this. I couldn't do it with Jeff because it was all his music. Let's put East and West music together and develop this thing that we finally ended up calling Oriental Jazz. And he says, okay, well, how's it going to go? I says, you just play like changes that Miles would play, you know, just one note, one chord changes, just all the white keys on the piano with Bill Evans chords, and I'll play this kind of wandering, meandering taxime, clarinet taximes and ouds and santur stuff, and we'll show them something really different, and maybe we'll win. So what finally happened is the Oriental Jazz thing, I was invited back to Europe to play every place but England, because nobody knew me anyplace else but Belgium. So I was invited back to the Bilson Jazz Festival. I did pretty good there. I played my Oriental jazz stuff, but some people couldn't figure it out. But they did say both in French and in Dutch, let's call it that this festival started with my Oriental jazz combo. So I was at the Woodstock Festival, and I was right next to Ravi Shankar on one side, and all these famous musicians and so on in the motel. And then my agent came up to me, he says, Lloyd, he said, everything's okay, you're getting your money, but you can't play. I says, why can't I play, man? I came out here to play. He says, you can't get there. I says, what do you mean I can't get there? The helicopter won't fly because there's no place to land. There's all these people, and there's fog, and he's scared, and so you don't get to play. But you do get your check. I says, well, what good is a check? I could become world famous in this Woodstock Festival, whatever. It wasn't even the Woodstock Festival yet. It became it the minute it was over. And so there I was, missed my chance again. When things kind of slowed down for me, the Intercollegiate Jazz Festival, you know, I made it and I got all these awards, but nothing happened. Then I got a Fulbright scholarship, so I get these lucky breaks to go to Iran and finish my doctoral dissertation and write on Persian music. Well, I got over there and I said, I'm never going back. I'm happy here. This is where I belong. I set up a concert series at the Iran American Society. Then finally, they invited me to the television to set up a concert series there and to have a prime time TV show where I would narrate in Persian and invite musicians such as the famous Filipino artists that were playing at the Intercontinental Hotel, who were famous back in the Philippines as the top jazz guys.